Bienvenidos a un episodio más de Zeitung, en esta oportunidad con Krista Shoe. Hello,
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
All good. So, primero antes de empezar, este episodio será en inglés. Para todas las personas que hablan inglés, I apologize for my English. It's possible I make so many mistakes with the linguistic process and stuff. If it's like this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everyone.
Perfect.
Para todas las personas que nos escuchan en español, vamos a tratar de poner los subtítulos en YouTube para que puedan hacer la traducción. En esta oportunidad, Krista Shoe. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Thank you. All good.
Yeah.
Today is a sunny, rainy day. We never know in Bocas.
Yeah, you never know.
So, in this opportunity, thank you first for accept my invitation for the show, for stay with me today. And we talk today about the corals and to the ocean life. We talked before, another day when we talk and you explain me a little about the project. And now we talk about this project more. For the people to see us and the people to listen us, the project is called Mother of Coral.
Yes.
So, first question. Where are you from and why are you living here in Bocas?
I am from the States. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but I lived almost 20 years in Colorado, so I kind of consider that to be home. I moved to Bocas in 2017, so that's almost 6 years ago now. And I just was looking for... I wanted to be an expat. I wanted to live abroad, and I was working from home full time in the corporate world at the time, and asked if I could, do the digital nomad thing, and originally got the permission to do so. So I started planning my move here. Right before I moved, that company was bought by another company, and they said, we don't want anybody outside the U.S. But I already had things here and signed a lease and all that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it for a year and see what happens. And if I hate it, I can always move back. And obviously, I didn't hate it because I'm still here.
When we talked before, this is for putting context the people why you are here, no? But in the other day when we talked, you mentioned you moved to Bocas, but because.
Yeah.
So it's not like your intention to move, like you search for. But what you love to this place? Why you stay? You decide to stay? I'm stay here.
Right. You mean why did I choose it?
Yeah.
I was looking. I kind of searched around. First, I wanted to be in the U.S. time zones because I thought I was keeping that job, right? So I didn't want to be in Australia and working in the middle of the night kind of thing. So obviously that means North and South America, Central America. And then I was looking, I didn't want my cats to be in quarantine. So I was searching for countries that, didn't require that. And that narrowed it down basically to Nicaragua and Panama. And I thought, Panama probably had a better infrastructure, internet and things like that, although focus is questionable sometimes. And then I searched for places to scuba dive in Panama and found Bocas that way. So I hadn't even heard of it at the time. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go visit and make sure that's where I want to be. But I want to be able to go diving anytime I want, avid scuba diver. And that's pretty much how it all happened.
Oh, but everything here is, basically in the archipielago, in the island, you dive every time you want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's a beautiful stuff around, like places. I think the word is sink, like big boats sink.
Mm-hmm.
So like the ferry or the airplane or so many stuff. So I think it's in that way, was a good choice.
Yep, exactly.
And now, with this project, the Mom of the Coral, when this born and what is about this project?
So it was born out of, I was working there's a coral restoration organization here that I was working for 3 years. I kind of fell into it right as I moved here, and I found that I absolutely loved doing coral restoration, and I took to it and learned about it very quickly. And then somebody came to our organization from a country called Mauritius and said, would you be willing to come teach us how to start coral restoration here? And that's kind of how it was born, that there was this need for places around the world to start restoring their corals, but maybe nobody lived there that had the experience or the knowledge or the motivation to start it, And so, my passion really is about teaching regular people, I'll say, like non-scientists, how to do this work. Because if we are, corals are in a lot of trouble, coral reefs are in trouble worldwide. And if we just relied on scientists to fix that problem, like, there's not enough scientists, right? So I feel like it's important for people who don't necessarily have a scientific background to understand the problem and know that they can be part of the solution. And learn about how they can change their lifestyle to reduce their carbon footprint that's affecting the corals. So that's kind of how everything came together originally.
What is about for put that context? Because I this regular person.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about. So what does mean like the coral restoration? So how's work this?
So corals have the ability to they reproduce asexually and also sexually. But the way they reproduce asexually is by cloning their polyps. So there's an individual organism in a coral colony that's called a polyp, and it can clone itself. And so they regenerate over time by cloning themselves. And so it's been discovered over time that by cutting corals down smaller and in some cases hanging them on trees, there's different methods, but we can, with human intervention, make them grow faster. And so, if you were just to say, like, we hope they come back on their own, at this point we've sort of caused enough damage that that's not necessarily possible. But if we're able to intervene, we can help them grow faster. So that's what it's very similar to gardening. A lot of people call it coral gardening because of the similarities, but yeah, that's what we do.
You need to breathe like a fish for this harvest,
Yeah, exactly.
You need to go down and cut all your plants.
Yep.
And then put in new roots.
Yeah.
But you explained me the other day, you used it like a PVC pipe for make like foundation or something like this.
Yeah, so when you're growing the corals, there's a way to, they call them trees, but it's basically PVC with the branches, and they're hanging branching corals from that PVC. And they grow up to 4 times faster that way. But then also our method includes doing artificial structures in the water, which are typically made out of either pH neutral cement or sometimes rebar, different things. But basically, when the corals die in an area, the whole reef collapses. And so if you bring the structures back, artificial structures, and put them in the area, the fish start coming back and the other organisms, and it helps build the ecosystem faster. And then we plant the corals on top of those artificial structures, and then they start to grow on top of that.
You did explain me the other day also, is the coral is like part of the, like, let's see, like the jungle. And then the reef is other part. What is the difference between and how work everyone together?
So it's just like any ecosystem, right, where there's a balance and every bit of that balance is needed. And then when there's an imbalance, it causes problems in the ecosystem. But hard corals are the foundation and the backbone of a coral reef. And so they're the most important part as far as keeping the ecosystem together. But that ecosystem includes, invertebrates and fish and everything that you'd see when you go snorkeling is part of a coral reef ecosystem.
What is where you or Mother of Corals is make this restoration around to Bocas archipelago? Is a specific spot, or you try to spread in all archipelago?
Yeah, it's kind of about like based on need and also funding and things like that. But we've got projects in different areas of the archipelago and are open to doing projects any place where there's a need, when there's lots of places that there's a need. But usually the funding kind of comes from someone that has a vested interest in a specific area. So like if a hotel says, hey, we want you to bring the reef in front of our hotel back, and they're going to pay for it, then we're going to work on that area.
What is the first problem for the corals right now. So what is the reason they die constantly, or if we destroy when we go on boat or swimming, or like the starfish, for example. In the starfish beach, the government like kind of forbidden to take the starfish because they kill. What happened with the corals?
So there are a lot of different factors. I like to say it's basically human impact, but right now a lot of the problem comes from spikes in the temperature of the water. So, we have normal spikes in Bocas about twice a year, but this particular year, what usually is 2 weeks in June ended up being like a 5-week temperature spike. And you can see it anywhere in the archipelago. The corals started to get very pale. They're starting to bleach. They're able to come back in a certain time frame if the conditions get better. But, all of these things are basically caused by an excess of carbon in the air.
So what we can do, like a normal people, like regular people, for help the coral without all the knowledge. If for instance, I don't talk with you and then I don't understand, but I in my home, what I can do for keep safe my area or my front place.
Right. So yeah, if you're saying like you have something in front of your house or whatever, then I would say specific things. Like I usually give kind of general advice about like reducing your carbon footprint, less plastics in your life. Using reef safe sunscreen is important. If you're going to go snorkeling and you've got sunscreen on that there's some chemicals in original sunscreens that are dangerous for corals. So now there's companies that make reef safe sunscreen. I think that's really important if you live in an area by the ocean. If you don't live by the ocean, it's still important because there's runoff, right? I mean, even taking a shower.
Yeah, the water is running out.
It's always going to run out to the ocean, So I think it's important no matter where you live, that key factor of reef safe sunscreen. It's small. I don't think that's like the global problem, but it's one way that you can help.
What about the gasolines?
Yeah, gasoline is part of it too. There's just like anything, right? There's going to be some level of pollution because humans are involved.
Yeah.
I would hope that we're moving into a world where maybe there's going to be electric boats. I think there are really expensive electric boats right now, but maybe the way that electric cars are becoming more accessible, maybe that'll be that way for boats eventually too.
Hope. I like the idea to see a sailing boat. Well, if you have a sailing boat, you most of the time don't use it engine. But have an engine with a solar panel in an environment like this, I think the gasoline is not necessary to use.
Right.
But for instance, it's Bocas have another project. This like project about to mangrove, to reconstruction the mangrove in the island, seen so many years ago. The mangrove and the coral, they work together. They depends one of the other, or this is like two ecosystem completely different.
No, they do work together. I would say, corals don't need the mangroves as much as the mangroves need the corals, but just because, coral reefs are without mangroves too. But when you see, like in Bocas, we have a lot of mangrove islands, and surrounding the mangrove islands are corals typically, and they are a protection, protection from wave action, extreme weather and things like that protect the mangroves. So I had somebody ask me one time, like, why are people restoring mangroves when they grow kind of like weeds? And it's like, well, when the corals are dying that protect the mangroves, then they're not able to grow like they normally do. So there is definitely a balance between the two when they're existing together.
When we think, or when we're thinking about corals, so most of the time we have in mind like the Australian wall, no, like all these live fishings and stuff with all these colorful. But before to come, I read the species of coral. There's like thousands amount of, and it's different. What type of corals we have here in Bocas? It's like
we have the standard corals that exist across the Caribbean. So it's not just, Caribbean corals are specific, right? And in Bocas, we've got all of those standard corals, but in coral restoration, you typically work with branching corals, or if you're using a method called microfragmentation, then you're going to be using stony corals like a brain coral or star corals and things like that. But usually the bulk of coral restoration, especially in the Caribbean, are working with a species called acropora, and the common name is called staghorn and elkhorn. So you'll see a lot of coral restoration in the Caribbean working with those specific species.
Here in Bocas, you mentioned me, or you told me the other day when we talked, you teach the people in different places. Talk me about this teaching process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's that was really what drove the organization to come into being. And so we had a project on the Pacific side of Panama, and there was an indigenous village. There is an indigenous village on that side, and we went to visit because they said we rely on fishing, and a lot of the fish are gone. We don't have as many fish as we used to have. We went and started looking and found that they had been using over time weighted nets and dragging them to catch fish, and that destroyed the coral. And what a lot of people don't understand, and you wouldn't unless you are told or somehow learn that, is that when the coral go away, then the fish do too, right? And so it's about teaching them how to bring back sustainably their source of protein, but also then how to, once the reef is built and the fish come back, how to keep an area where you let the juveniles alone and only fish outside of that area, so that you keep the life cycle going. And so it's really important, right, to find in each community how is it that the corals going away is hurting their lifestyle, and teaching them how to bring that back in a sustainable way.
You also explain me when you try to anchor your boat in somewhere, most of the people, because they don't have the knowledge, is throw the anchor and then waiting for catching something. Sometimes it's the sand, but most of the time it's a coral, no? At the rocks, it's a coral. So this is part of the problem too, and then you talk with these people too?
Yep. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that, again, if you don't understand why the corals are important and also how slow their growth cycle is, so, anchoring and pulling onto a piece of coral is going to kill part of the colony, and the growth cycle is years for that to come back, and if you don't know that, then you're not going to change your behavior. But once you do know that, then you go, okay, I'm going to look for a sand patch and not go kill half a colony of coral.
It's try to make I don't know, compare something. First, because I understand more everything on top of the land and not under the water. But it's happen the same with the forest, no? So when you go and you kill all the tree, so all the animals go away, and then basically, if you live in for the hunting process, all your bunny, for say example of the bunny or deers and stuff, is go away. So you basically don't have nothing to eat. This is exactly the same stuff that's happened with the oceans. If you destroy the coral, all the fishes go away, and basically the fishermen don't have a job again.
Right.
So here in Bocas, you say you start in 2020, right?
Right.
So right now this is 3 years of work. You know how many people you are teaching all this time?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think so. I think it would be really hard to quantify, because we have a lot of students that do study abroad and come and stay a semester in Bocas, and they all come through and do tours with them. And yeah, it would be really hard to quantify. I'm sure I could probably try to come up with a number, but it would be a lot.
In this point, we're talking about the name, but we don't mention in any moment where the people can find your job, like the Mother of Coral. So we find it in Instagram, Facebook, or website.
Yep. The website's motherofcorals.org. Instagram's mother.of.corals, and Facebook's Mother of Corals.
Only these three places, like website, Instagram, and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Where here in Bocas, what is the challenge for Mother of Corals? What is the most complicated part for do your job and all the process you make?
The funding. Always the problem, right? Trying to find the funding. And but if you're talking about like specific environmental problems, then I would say, like I just talked about the temperature spike we had, the ocean temperature last month, and it's stalling one of my projects. I'm not going to go collect corals and move them because it is stressful for corals to kind of go through that change. And right now they're suffering from having the water so warm that I have to wait until everything normalizes, and then they come back and they have a certain amount of time of being healthy before we can actually start doing our work again.
What is the best satisfaction you get in these 3 years with this project?
I mean, it's always about watching the corals go from, a little piece into something bigger. That's always a great feeling. But also like coming to the end of a project and having the project sponsor be happy with what they did and what we did, basically a successful project is a really great feeling. You
told me other day you also go to other countries and you teach people in other countries, and you do basically the same in other places. So in this topic, Bocas is like the mother of the project because it's like the base of for say something. But in what other countries you like have presence or talk with people or teach stuff?
So I'm working on a project that's going to be in Puerto Rico, hopefully starting next year. But so far, everything's been Panama. So Pacific side of Panama and Bocas, several places in Bocas, and now I'm working on a project for Puerto Rico. But, I'm in talks with other countries too. I'm in talks with other people in other countries for projects too. I don't have a level of confidence quite yet to say like, oh, we're definitely going here. But there are a lot of things on the works.
What is your goal? Like the Mother of Coral's goal?
Mother of Coral's goal, I would love to have, set up multiple bases in different countries where our process has been proven and it's, a well-oiled machine. And then people could come learn how to do it like as an internship and then get hired in any of those other bases to continue that work. So it's like a network of coral restoration. That's my goal.
How people like me, like normal and regular people, don't know nothing about the ocean. I'm a person to love so much be on the water, but on top of the water.
Right.
Like a boat, sailing, but not under the water. Mm-hmm. But how people like me can afford, like contribute, or I don't know what is the word, like funding part of the project for help, especially in Bocas, the restoration of the corals?
I would, there's always like administrative type work that can be done, right? Like social media and website and fundraising and things like that don't involve necessarily being in the water, but it's still very important parts of the program.
For instance, Andrea, she's a diver too. So people like divers maybe can hear the program or can watch the program. If they want to join you and help you, what they need to do? If they contact you, or what is the way to help you to go and restore the coral?
Yeah, right now I'm in the process of like developing a volunteer program. I don't have it specifically set up quite yet. So what's happened so far, it's just sort of like, a friend or a friend of a friend, like, hey, when's the next time you're going out? Can I join you? Yeah, sure, no problem. But as far as like having an official, like, okay, here's how you sign up and here's what happens when you do. And I'm not there yet, but I really want to be there by the end of this year.
So when you start the project as Mom of the Coral, you start for yourself and you continue to do everything in your own, or slowly you grow up your teamwork, and now you are like a big component, big amount of people. Big amount of people is more of one, no?
There's more than one, yes, but it's not big. Yeah, I mean, when I started, it was, there's two guys that own a dive center here called Boca's Pirates, and we had been working on a project together actually during quarantine, and found, not only do we work really well together, but they're amazing, talented scuba divers. Like, as far as doing work underwater, I learned a lot from them, and they learned a lot from me about corals, and we found that we were a really great team. So when this opportunity came up, they were the people I went to and said, hey, I want to try to maybe do this on my own, branch out, do this business model, but I need you two to be part of it. And they were all in, and they have been ever since. So we've been working together for years now. And I've got somebody that does my social media, and then when we go out, they kind of bring people. So they have an internship program at the dive shop, and people that are doing internships there end up coming along with us and being part of it just during their internship. So that's kind of a extension of a team that kind of changes, but the bulk is myself, Alex, Chicho, and my social media manager, Mia, is our team right now.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is mean for all the people listen us and for the people watch us, we need hands.
Yeah.
For continue the project. I understand for talking with other person about two other projects, like the money process is one of the most, like, let's say the handbrake for continue do stuff, because everything is cost. Even the PVC pipe maybe is the most cheap part of the stuff, but still.
But still costs money, yeah.
So, but the hands, I think it's all people diving, all divers, and can help like slowly go with this tiny part of the coral, and then make the garbage. I cannot do. Even I can put the snorkel, I cannot breathe. I receive water from the snorkel.
Yeah.
So this is specific for people can have this special skills.
Yeah, underwater people.
Yeah, the underwater people, not for people like us. But people like me can help in the other way.
Yep.
This is, I think, one way to help. So for going the conclusion of the program, what is the messenger, or if you have a messenger for the people who watch us, or something you want to say, like, hey, we need to do this?
Yeah. My biggest message is just focusing on reducing carbon footprint, reducing, there's like the term, there was a push for many years about recycling, and recycling is important. I'm not saying that it's not, but I think even bigger than that is reducing what we use, and always thinking about how can I reduce what I'm using, things I don't need. And also just like sort of the mission of our business is making sure people understand that the average person can learn how to do this and can help, and we need that. We can't rely just on scientists to do all of this, because there aren't enough to make it happen quickly. So that's my biggest message.
We are more normal person and less scientific people on the planet.
Exactly.
So we need to work together for keep everything.
Yeah, it's important to have scientific input, right? And use scientific methods for sure. But I think that it can be boiled up to a consumable bit of information that anyone can understand and feel like they're part of helping with the problem.
And I think it's special when you go with the people, like not scientific people, and you put it in part of something, and then the people feel part of something.
Right.
And then like the people to put a seed in the soil and then see the tree slowly. So this feeling of I put this plant there and then this plant is grow. I think it's the same concept, no? Like keep normal people and teach something and try to, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then slowly, when you see it from this to a big tree in front of your house,
Right.
you say, okay, I made it.
That. Yeah.
This is my baby. This is my plant.
Exactly.
Underwater plant, but still.
Yep. Still babies.
Yeah. So one last question: when you mentioned when you may take this small part of the coral and then I make a new one, how long is the time for grow up?
So I would say it's usually about 6 months. If you're talking about like a branching coral hanging on a PVC tree, it's about 6 months until it's ready to be clipped down and then either made into new tree or planted on the reef, and then the piece that stays there is called the mother. And that, is always growing, clipping, but the piece that stays there, it's kind of where the term mother of corals came from, because that's the mother piece and it always grows more.
So it's like the normal tree.
Yep.
You cut, he continue, and
Exactly.
he continue, and you continue cut.
Exactly.
Like the basil, for instance.
Yep.
You cut, and she continue.
That's exactly right.
So for repeat again, so the model of coral in internet is like Facebook, Mother of Coral, Instagram, Mother of Coral.
Yeah, mother.of.corals is on Instagram.
All right. And the website?
And the website's motherofcorals.org.
All right. So thank you for your time. Thank you for teach me a little of what you do and all the process about the reef. So I say always the same, when we start talking and we start to learn something, the time fly.
Yep.
So thank you for your time. It's a beautiful day. I hope it's still like this today.
I know, me too.
The people can enjoy a little of sunny today in Bocas.
Yeah.
So for everyone that's listening us and for everyone that's watching us, Krista, the mom of coral, stay with us. And this is Zeitung, and we see you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.